Will you look at that? We got ourselves a fine-looking horse in the yard.
I like animals.
You like videos of animals.
Come on out, kids.
What's Shadrach doing here? Your papa bought him for you and Michael.
Who's ready to ride a horse?
We are.
I want to go searching for artifacts.
Well, I can't wait to hear what you discover.
The power of faith had just begun to take us places.
Yeah!
And a new life of adventure for all of us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the MFTV Movie Club interview cast. I'm Beth. And I'm Kirsten. And Beth, we would like to welcome our special guest, Greg Allan Martin, to the show. Welcome, Greg. Welcome,
Thank you.
Greg.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Kirsten. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're so happy to have you. Greg is on the show today to talk about his latest TV show, Shadrach. But first, we want to take a little step back in time because Greg has actually had a very interesting career trajectory. So I want to go all the way back to college, Greg, where you played D1 football at Vanderbilt University. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and two brothers, and pretty much anything with a ball we were playing whenever we could. Football, baseball, basketball, tennis, golf. And at the time, I thought I was the best athlete in the world, of course. You're a big fish in a small pond. That whittled down eventually to where I did get the opportunity to go to Vanderbilt and play football there. So that was at the time, because also my dad was very adamant about that old sobriquet of being a student athlete. Student had to come first. So to me, Vanderbilt was the best combination of Division I football and a great academic school.
What did you play? What did you play when you were on the team?
Oh, I went as a running back. That's what I was in my freshman year. And then I just wasn't really big enough or fast enough or talented enough to really be a great Division I running back. So I'd always been a kicker. I loved kicking, punting and kicking and that sort of thing. So I was our kicker for the last couple of years. So that probably helped me avoid a lot of injuries, but we played in the Southeast Conference, and Vanderbilt, as they used to say, Vanderbilt tries to be Harvard 6 days a week, and they try to be Alabama on Saturdays, and it doesn't always work. So we got beat a lot. So as a kicker, you don't get to kick a lot when your team doesn't score a lot.
But as a mom, you get to be nice and safe and behind
That's
a whole
exactly
bunch of big
right.
guys so
right.
you're not getting tackled. Well, Greg, after you graduated from Vanderbilt, then you went to Harvard Law School and you began a career in the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, and you were there for nearly 30 years. Right. Did you work on any high-profile cases during that time?
Well, either luckily or unluckily, I came in after the whole OJ thing. So I was not in the office when that happened. And it's probably a good thing because that was not a proud day for the DA's office. That's a whole nother story.
Exactly.
But I didn't work on any really high profile or media cases, which was completely fine with me. I'd much rather be in front of a camera when somebody else is doing the writing and I've got a great script instead of just doing a criminal case, because that can get pretty hairy in the media. So I had a lot of, obviously very important cases, but just no high profile media ones.
Okay. So did that work in the DA's office? Did that inform your acting at all?
It did. Yeah. I've often thought that trial attorneys are at the heart just frustrated actors. So, and I used to think that the reason that I had to, after being a trial attorney during the day, going and doing theater at night, the reason I did that was because an audience of only 12 people at a time was just not enough for my ego.
Okay.
There are a lot of similarities. I mean, to be a good trial attorney, you obviously have to be able to not only speak and be articulate, but you have to be a storyteller. to convince a jury. You can have all the facts in the world on your side, but you still have to tell a good story. In fact, I used to teach some classes in the DA's office because I was doing some acting simultaneously about courtroom presence and how to bring acting skills to the courtroom. The only problem, wow. I was going to say, the only problem is that juries don't laugh. You know, you try to throw in a little joke or a little anecdote here and there. They're just very serious. And I understand that they think they do have a very important job to do. But I found this was not a place for my sometimes ineffective humor.
Okay. So it sounds like the transition from attorney to actor seemed very natural for you. What was the impetus for the final push to move completely into acting?
Well, it wasn't really a transition insofar as I had grown up doing church plays and in junior high doing some theater. But when I got into college, between playing football, which is a full-time job, and being a student with the idea of eventually going to law school, I just didn't have time to do theater. I wish I had. But in law school, we had a little drama group there. We did these very amateurish, but it was so much fun to do something to get away from the intense study there. And while I was in the DA's office, I was blessed to be part of a really good theater company where even while I was a DA, I did, over those years, I did probably 25 different plays with them. So it had always been a passion, and it was something that was a hobby. But to specifically answer your question, it wasn't until I retired from the DA's office a couple of years ago that I decided, okay, now's the time to take that avocation and make it a bit more of a vocation.
Any musical theater during that time?
Yes, I did. I was never trained as a singer, and I've always wished that I had that great, incredible Broadway voice, but I just wasn't blessed with that. Yeah, I did have the chance. One of my very favorite theater highlights was to play Don Quixote in Man of La Mancha and sing The Impossible Dream. But you can kind of get away with being a little bit more of a character singer in that show.
Yes, it's true. Yes. It's true. Okay.
So you've appeared in some of our favorite TV shows, including Scrubs. I loved Without a Trace. And Casey's favorite show, I can't actually say the first word of the TV show because of YouTube, but Angela Lansbury's very long-term show. And you've also appeared on Mad Men and Ozark. So I would love to talk about a little bit about, Casey and I both have seen this scene, and I watched it again recently. You did a scene with Jason Bateman in Ozark where he was kind of trying to hoodwink your character a little bit, and I think he underestimated your character's intelligence a little bit but right. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit, like working with people like Jason Bateman. Do you ever get starstruck?
Well, no, because as my dad used to always say, when we were athletes growing up, that it's a cliche, but he used to say it all the time when I would talk about these great athletes or how could I ever be like that? And he'd go, son, they put on their pants one leg at a time, just like you do. So and when you've done acting for a while, obviously you're very impressed with the career and the talent that some people like Jason Bateman have. But you also understand when you've been in acting classes. I mean, I was in acting classes with so many people so talented, and the percentage of people who actually have that level of success as opposed to the people who are actually trying it is so small. So there's a lot of luck involved in it. And you recognize that, and you hope that people who get to that position have the humility to recognize, boy, I am so lucky to be here. A lot of them don't, but some of them are very humble. And Jason was a very, very nice, humble guy. And that one scene pretty much took the entire day to shoot. And it was such a pleasure to work with him. And he was directing it too, which makes it even more of a gift that I have so much respect for, to be able to direct and act and carry a huge show like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and some of the other shows you've been on have been been very well known. So tell us a little bit about, like, so what's been one of your favorite shows to work on?
Well, Ozark definitely was because
Yeah.
I'm from Arkansas, but I did go to some very good schools and never had a really strong Southern accent growing up. But that one allowed me to tap into my Southern redneck roots because I was playing this Southern boat owner and was wearing a flappy hot hat and like you said, caused Jason to underestimate me. So that was a tremendous amount of fun. A couple of years ago, I got to work on A Man Called Otto with Tom Hanks, and that was a joy for a number of reasons. Going back to the thing about stars, Tom Hanks was exactly what you would expect or hope him to be. He's just such a nice, generous, warm human being who is very, very humble and gracious. But one of the things I loved about that was, to me, the thing I probably love the most about acting is good writing, because that's where it all starts. And I have so much respect, probably, well, definitely more than I do for actors, for good writing. I mean, there's so much good writing on TV now, how they can write these complex stories over 8 or 10 episodes. But that, you may or may not know this, but that movie came from one of my favorite books of all time, which is called A Man Called Ove, O-V-E, instead of Otto. A Swedish author by the name of Fredrik Backman, who I just adore. And so when I got there, I got to spend some time talking to not only Tom, but Rita Wilson, his wife.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, tell me about how this came back. She goes, I read that book and fell in love with it. And I said, Tom, you've got to do this movie. I don't know.
Wow.
Fredrik Backman is one of my favorite authors as well.
Yeah.
And when I read that book, I fell in love with it. Have you seen the Swedish version of the movie?
Yes. I had watched that one before I even saw that there was an audition for the American version. And the Swedish version is very good also.
Yeah. It's just a delightful story, all of those. And I agree with you on the writing is, I don't do any of the writing for what we do. Beth is the one in charge of that. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Oh, go ahead, Case.
No, it's totally up to you, Beth.
Oh, okay. So you were kind of talking about luck. Let's talk about that a little bit, like how you ended up like getting all these great roles, but also what you were talking about having some acting classes and things like that. So tell us about your training, and then tell us about how you actually started getting the roles in the television series and movies.
Yeah, well, I went to New York for a couple of years and did some studying there and did some theater there prior to moving out to California. And when I got to California, just as most actors do, you join various acting classes. But it had to be, just by nature of the fact that I had a full-time job in the DA's office, it had to be a part-time hobby. It had to be sporadic. And that's not just in terms of training, but also the pursuit of it. But I was fortunate enough to be able to eventually get an agent and start getting some auditions. But it was a double-edged sword. I'm very grateful, and I think it was a very wise choice to put my academic career first, have a full-time job, something that I was passionate about as well, and it brought me a lot of fulfillment. So then I wasn't desperate for the acting. I could do it when I happened to get a job. And I was fortunate enough, because it's really hard to get work as an actor. So I didn't have to spend all my time waiting tables or bartending, that sort of thing. I had a real job. But the limitations of that was that I could only go work for a day or two or a week or something, and then I had to come back to work. And it's actually segueing into when I retired, I was finally able to take those jobs as they came along, which would require more time. And sure enough, within a couple of months after I retired, I got the audition for Shadrach, which is the show that you mentioned that's on now. And it shot for 6 weeks in Georgia. If I'd been working as a DA, I would have had to turn it down. But now that I was retired, I was able to go out there and spend 6 weeks and shoot 6 episodes of it. So that was such a joy.
That's amazing. And we're going to talk about Shadrach in a few minutes. We're just got a few more questions before we start talking about the Shadrach, which we both really enjoyed, by the way. It was such a good show. I don't normally cry on TV shows, but I did cry a little bit, but we'll talk about that. So I want to ask you again, also, like, so what type of role or genre would you like to explore more that you maybe haven't yet in your career?
Oh, that I haven't yet. Well, I think I'm probably too old for the Marvel superheroes.
You never know. Maybe not.
Yeah, I've gotten kind of tired of those anyway. But I know we're going to get into Shadrach at some point, but that's the kind of genre that speaks most to my heart. First of all, going back to the good writing. But even when I was in theater, I did and tried to do plays, and it's been a privilege to be a part of a show like Shadrach that speak more to my heart. When people would come into the theater, I'd want them to leave with, it's not like you're teaching them a lesson, but just I want them to leave thinking. You know, there's a lot of entertainment out there that's just like, you know, a sugar high. You go, you see it, you enjoy it, you forget about it. But to be able to make people think, to somehow inspire them, to make them think about their lives, reflect on it. So movies or TV shows or whatever that I feel like have some values that I can relate to. That's the kind of thing I want to do mostly.
Yeah, I agree with that. And before Casey has a couple more questions for you before we talk about Shadrach, but I agree with you. The writing on that show it's so exceptional, and the casting was exceptional as well. I think every single character was so well cast, and it was such a joy to watch. But before we talk about it, Casey just has a couple more questions.
Okay. So earlier you were talking about auditions and going for the auditions. How would you prepare?
Well, the way auditions, of course, everything changed during COVID. It used to be that you'd get an audition and you would then go into a casting office and read for the casting director, and then you'd go back to the casting office to do a callback with producers and directors. And that all changed during COVID because you couldn't go into those offices anymore. And they started doing things, what they call self-tapes. So people would do a videotape at home, and there are now websites that you send those in that way. And that's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it's much more convenient because you don't have to run all over town. The other part of it is that the flip side of that is that now, because of that, because everybody can audition by videotape, you are competing against people literally all over the world. I mean, there could be an audition that I get for a series tomorrow, and I could be auditioning with, you know, the guy up the street, but also with a guy in Australia or London or wherever. So the competition has gotten much more difficult because of that. But in terms of preparation, you don't get a lot of time. Some days they usually give you a couple of days, but it's reading the script and you don't see the whole script. I should say reading what's called the sides, just the pages for that audition. So it's trying to come up with a character and learn the lines and tell the truth.
Okay, great. And what would you consider your biggest break into the industry?
I'm still waiting for that.
Well, I'm pretty impressed by the things that I'm seeing on your Vitae. So,
well, a couple of things. Ozark was such a high-profile show, and of course, the interesting thing about that is, well, I knew I was doing a scene with Jason Bateman, which is amazing, but at that time, this was the second episode. And which means, of course, it's months and months and months before the show ever airs, much less having any clue whatsoever that this is going to be a mega huge 5-season show that's going to be a phenomenon. You just have no idea about that. So the chance that I was blessed enough to be able to get a part in that was that's a great calling card. But again, going back to Shadrach now, this is the first chance that I've had to be what's called a series regular. rather than going in and doing a day part or a guest star, which, you know, I've done a few of those. And that's always nice. And the bigger the project, the more cachet you get from that. But to be a series regular, which means somebody had enough faith in you to go, we want you to be a regular part of this cast for every episode. That's another step up in terms of where you are as an actor.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So let's talk about Shadrach. So Shadrach is the story of Rose and James Wilson, who moved from the city to live with Rose's parents after they experience a job loss. I won't give any spoilers on that. And then with their two children, Anna and Michael, the family has to make a big adjustment to their lives, and they use their faith to guide them. You play Pawpaw, who is the head of the family. And I just want to talk a little bit about, so Casey and I are from the Milwaukee area, so we are really familiar with Harley Davidsons. And I'm not going to spoil the show, but there is, Pawpaw owns a Harley Davidson, a vintage Harley Davidson. So, and he ends up trading it for Shadrach. And I was thinking about it. Maybe you won't get the joke if you don't know, but I was like, oh, he traded a hog for a horse.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week.
Oh my gosh. I wish I had known that at the time. I would have used that.
You can use it next season.
Yeah.
Were you able to ride the Harley? Did you get to ride the Harley?
Very, very. I got to sit on it. There is a scene, of course, which shows him riding down the highway and then riding to the farm where he meets his neighbor, and there's a number of scenes of me polishing up the Harley. But it's funny because I've got two boys. The older one is 28, and he texted me soon after the episode. He goes, "Why wouldn't you ever let us ride motorcycles?" And I said, because my mom, as much as she let us do so many things and risky things and all kinds of sports, that was the one thing she said, that is not even open for discussion. You will never get on those. So that was a stunt man riding it, but I wish I could have.
I'd rather be on the back of a horse than the back of a motorcycle. Anyway.
Yeah. I dated a woman once who worked in an ER, and she said they used to call them donor bikes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, this series reminded me of many 70s TV shows that really kind of led with the heart. For example, Little House on the Prairie, The Waltons, Grizzly Adams. So can you describe the character Pawpaw to us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, from the time I got the audition, it took me a while to get over the fact that I was now old enough to play it.
Yes. I feel your pain.
Me too.
So, but you talked a little bit about the setup there, and this is not really giving anything away because it happens within the first few minutes of the first episode. You're right. The parents are living in the big city. The dad's got a very good job. They've got a beautiful condo overlooking the city. Two kids, 12-year-old girl, 10-year-old boy. But he loses his job, actually loses the company, and that's part of the plot. But they have to move to the country to live with Pawpaw and Graham. And so the show is, you're exactly right. It's a throwback in some ways to those shows that really are about family. And I tell people, I say it sounds like a cliche, but this really is good for the whole family because you've got kids, you've got parents, you've got grandparents, and it's all about change. And change is hard. And you can imagine this 12-year-old girl who's living in the big city, and she must go to a big school. She's got so many friends, and she's young and pretty and popular. And all of a sudden, she's yanked out of that to live in the country. And younger brother goes along with her, and dad's lost his job. Mom, who used to live in this small town, has been in the big city. And now she has to go back. So she kind of feels like a failure. And Pawpaw and Graham, they've been settled into their lives and are comfortable living on their farm. And all of a sudden they got 4 more people living in the house with them. So it's all about change. And how do you not just sort of accept that, but how do you embrace it and find a way to really learn to appreciate and value what different generations offer. And that's one of the things I love about the show.
Yeah.
And it's true back to those old shows. All of a sudden, Anna, the young girl, she's gaining so much wisdom from what Pawpaw teaches her. And Rose, the mom, is now spending more time with her mom, which she hasn't done in years, because, you know, families are usually so separated by geography nowadays that, you know, grandparents, you know, sort of see the grandkids every once in a while, or once the kids move out of the house, they could be in a different city. So this is really bringing a family together in a wonderful way that's challenging. I don't want to make it sound like this is all saccharine and sweet. I mean, there's drama that goes on there, hiding secrets from each other. There's the mean neighbor, and there's the quirky, fun neighbor. So it's got a lot of different elements to it. So it's not like it's just this sweet, saccharine show, or that it's preachy. They are a family that are a faith family. They go to church. Sometimes they'll go, hey, let's just pray about this. But they don't beat you over the head with it. It's just kind of who they are. It's part of their value system.
Yeah, and they have that main character. One of the main characters also is the pastor of the church. And I really like these other characters around the Wilson family. I thought that was really spectacular. But the minor characters are really important to the series too. But you're right. There's a lot of challenges. It's not just everything is roses and peaches. They do really have serious challenges, especially the son Michael, who has I think it's called, is it Fanconi anemia?
Exactly.
And I do love that they have him on the show as well. I think it's really important too. I think it's really important to show a population of people that we don't normally see on TV. I have a really close relative who is wheelchair bound, and so it's nice to see that on television and give people a chance to see it and get a better understanding of it. And it's an important part of the show as well, because he's such a great kid, and he's funny, and he's really cute, and he works really hard to you know, I mean, it's a challenge every day for him. Yeah. But he handles it with a lot of grace. And I think everybody on the show handles it with a lot of grace.
And I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you. Because it's part of the show, and it's part of their family. Michael on the show, and of course, Cale Farron, who plays him and in the show. In real life, he has, and you correctly pronounced it, it's Fanconi anemia, which is a rare genetic blood disorder that affects the bone marrow and makes someone more susceptible to things like leukemia and other cancers. And one of the hallmarks of that is that they have no thumbs, and his hands are turned inward, kind of like claws. And this family, who's now going through all these changes, you realize that they've had to deal with so much for the entire 10 years of his life. Right. But they just accept it. They embrace it. I mean, they include him in everything. And Anna takes care of her younger brother, but he is so self-sufficient, and he rides the horse. He's doing homework. He's typing. He does all this stuff. And you're exactly right. To me, he is the heart and soul of the humor of this show, because he is just, I mean, it was such a testimony to me, because I've been an athlete all my life. I've been healthy all my life. Well, I'm getting older. The joints are starting to hurt.
I hear that.
Yeah. But he's dealt with that his entire life, and it could quite possibly get worse as he gets older. But that kid is just filled with so much light. He made all of us laugh. And my laugh out loud moments in the show are seeing him do some of his lines. And he's just a mischievous little kid in real life. He's telling jokes all the time. So it's just wonderful. Like you said so well, it's just part of who they are. And it's not, they don't make a big deal about it. It's just like, hey, he's a great kid, and we love him. And he is a heart and soul of our family, just like Anna is, and like the horse becomes.
Yes. When she first brought Shadrach, or when she first saddled up Shadrach, I was so excited to see that he got on the horse as well, because that's really an important part of really just including this child who is just a little bit different than everyone else in everything, and how it's just very smoothed over as the writing goes. It just is what it is. This is what the family is. How did you prepare to be a grandfather on television?
Well, I am not one yet. I started with kids a little bit late, so I've got 2 boys, and they have not come up with any grandkids yet. So I'm still waiting for that. But to me, what is so special about, again, this show, but also to me about the character of Paw Paw, is he has a chance, which a lot of grandparents don't have, except, like I said, on a sporadic basis. He has a chance to be a mentor into these young kids' lives. And the horse provides that as much as anything. What he teaches Anna and Michael about how to care for a horse, how to slow down and just appreciate the simpler things in life. And it really, as you'll see, and you've already seen it, is how it just transforms Anna. Because when she goes, as I mentioned earlier, she's not happy about this. In fact, she gets there to the farm, gets out of the car and picks up her cell phone and goes, "There's no cell service here."
Especially when they show her in that condo and there's that landscape of the city out her bedroom window.
Right.
Oh, it's so phenomenal. I was super jealous of that. And then she moves to the country. But so as we kind of touched on earlier, there are some really tense moments, especially in the first episode. Particularly how Shadrach came to the family. And for me, some of that was really difficult to watch. And I'm sure it is for viewers. It's actually ends up being very touching. So I don't want to give any, make anyone be scared to watch it, but it's tense. So what scenes resonated with you when you were filming, and why was that?
Well, you had mentioned it earlier, or Kirsten had mentioned it earlier, that and it goes along with what I was saying about Paw Paw investing in these kids and being a mentor to these kids, but also just the love that comes within a family. I mean, this Harley Davidson is his prized possession. And in one of the first scenes, he's out there polishing, and Michael is just all goggle-eyed at it. And the mom comes in and is kind of like, "What are you doing here?" He says, "Don't worry, I don't ride it. I just look at it."
Yes,
you can just tell. I mean, it's like so many people have vintage cars that they just baby and take such good care of. So this means a great deal to him. But the fact that when he sees his granddaughter just falling in love with this horse, who is, you'll have to watch the show to see how that connection becomes, but it's not their horse, but he finds a way to give away his motorcycle so she can have this horse.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And it's a cathartic moment for the entire family. And I think especially for Anna, because she really is like, okay, maybe it's okay to be here at this age where I am, because I think for her, it was the biggest challenge. You know, for Rose, it was sort of coming home. And for Michael, I think he was a little bit happier too, because he didn't have some good experiences in school. But it really was, the horses really brings the family together in a way that I think that everybody is going to love if you watch the show, which, by the way, all of the first season is available now on the Great American Pure Flix station. So I will put the link for that station below in the notes, and then for those of you listening on our audio, I'll put that link in the show notes as well. So we want to say thank you so much, Greg, for joining us. But what is next for you? What's your next project?
Well, there's nothing definite right now, but there are some things that are in the works. And I'm actually hoping, as I made reference to earlier, I'm a person of faith myself. And this is not what I think I would traditionally call a faith-based show, again, because that whole idea of their faith is very gentle. But I would love to do more programs like this, more that have a faith-based element to them, or if not specifically that, just more of a family-based thing. So there are a couple of things that I'm kind of in line for right now, but I can't really talk about at this point.
Right. Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward to your next project, and hopefully there'll be a season 2 of Shadrach. I would love to see a season 2 of Shadrach. So, and thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much again for joining us.
You can watch our interviews on our YouTube channel, or you can listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're also on Facebook, Threads, X, and Insta. So until next time, we'll see you right here in the Clubhouse.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Greg, so much. That's